The Harlem Renaissance was a watershed moment in human history when Black African Americans gained new and unprecedented freedom of speech. Men have long been regarded as the only dominant heroes of the Harlem Renaissance movement, but this video will show otherwise. Contrary to popular belief, women played significant roles in the Harlem Renaissance, forging new ground as writers, singers, painters, and entertainers. In today's video, we'll look at just a few of the major women of the Harlem Renaissance who went on to have a significant impact on American arts and culture in the years that followed. The Harlem Renaissance was a cultural movement that occurred from the mid-1910s to the mid-1930s and is regarded as a golden age for African American art and culture, with a blooming of visual and performing arts, music, and literature. Much of what we know about the Harlem Renaissance overlooks the important roles that Black women played. Langston Hughes, Alain Locke, Louis Armstrong, and Marcus Garvey are among well-known names. Meanwhile, many of the time's trendsetters and campaigners were women who were marginalized because of their gender and ethnicity, with their work being pushed to the background in favor of that of men. Black women were typically restricted to positions like salon managers and hostesses. Even the women who broke over that barrier to join that sought intellectual elite were shunned and informed that their thoughts and views were too radical. These ladies wrote, sang, and created art on their experiences as Black women in the United States during the early 20th century. Many audiences were taken aback by the severe reality that some of them depicted, causing these women to be overlooked. Womanhood, particularly Black womanhood, was deemed inappropriate for public discussion, creating a societal environment in which these women were viewed as extremists or radicals for translating their experiences and stories into art. Several women played important roles in the Harlem Renaissance, whose work marked turning moments in the movement and whose ideas continue to resonate now. Here are just a few of these pioneering ladies. Bessie Smith. Bessie Smith was born in Chattanooga in either 1894 or 1895. Bessie has 6 siblings. Her family was very poor. Her dad was a Baptist minister. Her parents died while she was young. Bessie and her brother Andrew supported their family by working as street performers. Bessie sang, and Andrew played guitar. Bessie's older sister did not think performing was a respectable profession and frequently reprimanded her for singing in public. But Bessie knew she was talented and refused to give up. In 1912, Bessie's brother Clarence encouraged her to join a musical ensemble. Ma Rainey, a famous blues singer, heard Bessie sing and urged her to join her on the road. Ma Rainey taught Bessie how to look after her as a young Black woman in the male-dominated entertainment sector. As a blues singer, she was regarded as the Empress of the Blues. In 1923, she signed with Columbia Records, where she quickly rose to prominence. The invention of recording electricity and radio broadcasting in the 1920s boosted her career. She recorded 160 albums for Columbia and was one of the most well-paid and successful Black entertainers of her time. Her music liberated working-class women by emphasizing independence and sexual freedom. Many of her songs addressed female sexuality, and she promoted female empowerment beyond what was considered allowable for women, such as piety and motherhood. Others of her songs addressed subjects like poverty and racial brutality. Her compositions, Prison Blues, Send Me to the Electric Chair, and Workhouse Blues, addressed concerns of capital penalty and the convict lease system, which were aimed at the Black population. As a woman who was expressive about the female experience and the reality of being a Black woman, she was often seen negatively by many audiences, and she was consigned to a background role, as were many other Black female artists of the day. Despite this, Smith proved to be resilient, scoring numerous top hits throughout her career. 3 of her albums were inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame posthumously. She recorded and performed with famous Harlem Renaissance musicians such as Louis Armstrong and Fletcher Henderson. Smith sang on some of the most pressing yet contentious topics of the day, including poverty, prejudice, and violence, and as a result, she became an important spokesman for Black African American women and a key figure in the Harlem Renaissance. Let's quickly take a look at another pace-setter who impacted the Harlem Renaissance period with her writing talent, Zora Neale Hurston. Hurston was born in Eatonville, Florida in 1901. She was an author, filmmaker, and anthropologist who was widely regarded as one of the most influential and pivotal individuals of the Harlem Renaissance. Her childhood was terrible, and after her mother died when she was 13, she dropped out of school due to family difficulties. She hadn't finished high school by her mid-20s due to the need to work, so she pretended to be 16 years old to qualify for free public education. Later, she graduated from Barnard College in 1928 and went on to write several short stories and articles, including Mules and Men, a collection of Black Southern folklore. The late 1930s and early 1940s were the most productive years of her career when she released Their Eyes Were Watching God, which examined gender norms, female liberation. Hurston was particularly interested in folklore and how West African religion developed and merged with different belief systems and cultures during the transatlantic slave trade, and in 1938 she released Tell My Horse, a book about voodoo activities in the Caribbean. With the inclusion of her other works, such as Moses, Man of the Mountain, her autobiography Dust Tracks on a Road, and Seraph on the Suwannee, she solidified her position as a notable author and cultural pioneer. Her work, Barracoon, The Story of the Last Black Cargo, was published posthumously in 2018, and it relates the narrative of Cudjoe Lewis, the last known survivor of the last surviving slave ship in the transatlantic trade that transported African slaves to America. In a letter to a friend, she summed up the thinking of many Harlem Renaissance women. Our next trendsetter reveals another woman who overwhelmed her world with her remarkable writing skills. Jessie Ramon Fauset. Fauset was born on the 27th of April, 1882 in Camden, the county, New Jersey. She grew up in Philadelphia and attended Philadelphia High School for Girls. She received an educational stipend to attend Cornell University, where she was possibly the first black female student, and completed with a BA in Classical Language Studies in 1905. Following graduation, she served as a teacher at Baltimore and Washington, D.C. Fauset began writing for The Crisis, the NAACP's official journal, which W.E.B. Du Bois co-founded and published. After several years of contributing poems, essays, and reviews to The Crisis, Fauset became the journal's literary editor in 1919, moving to New York City for the position. The Crisis, an NAACP periodical, allowed her to participate in the Harlem Renaissance by supporting literary works about the era's social activities. Jessie Fauset was the Crisis literary editor. During her 7 years in this position, she introduced and advanced the careers of many of the greatest Harlem Renaissance authors, including Jean Toomer, Claude McKay, Countee Cullen, and Langston Hughes, to the magazine's national readership. Fauset also wrote essays, novels, and poems. Her publications include There Is Confusion, 1924, Plum Bun, 1928, The Chinaberry Tree, 1931, and Comedy, American Style, 1933. All of these publications are about African American culture and economic struggles during that period. Although Fauset popularized the work of younger artists during the Harlem Renaissance, she was also the most prolific author of the time. Next is the most captivating female black dancer of all times and ages, who used her fame and prestige to fight against oppression and racism. Josephine Baker. Josephine Baker, dubbed the world's first black female superstar, was born Frida Josephine McDonald in 1906 in segregated St. Louis, Missouri. Baker's parents were formerly enslaved, and she grew up on the destitute streets, often hungry. Her strong-willed personality led her to be recruited for the St. Louis Chorus Vaudeville act, and at the age of 13, she was on her way to New York City. Josephine Baker's sudden ascent to popularity swiftly established her as a household figure, best known for her daring banana dance, in which she danced in nothing but an artificial banana skirt and a pearl necklace. Her distinctive rhythmic approach was unparalleled in Parisian theaters. Though her compelling dancing propelled her into the spotlight, Baker's uncompromising expression of black femininity and a strong sense of identity confirmed her as an iconic figure, not just in dance but in all of her endeavors. By reclaiming her ethnic identity and portraying herself not only as a dancer but also as a star, Josephine Baker entered a new sphere of recognition that was rarely designated for black women. Her celebrity peaked amid a period of severe racial tensions in her own United States. While traveling across America, Baker wrote several pieces about segregation and spoke at a historically black college in Tennessee about the discrepancies in how race is treated in the Americas and her adopted Europe. Baker's experience in France and the freedom she was given there had a significant impact on her outlook on race relations, and it was this mindset that motivated her to become an increasingly vocal campaigner. Baker was the sole recognized female speaker at the 1963 March on Washington, joining the Rev. Martin Luther King Jr. Before bringing this video to a wrap, I would love you to meet yet another prolific writer who fought racism using her remarkable writing skills. Nella Larsen. Nella Larsen was born Nellie Walker in Chicago on April 13, 1891. Her mother, Marie Hansen, was a Danish domestic caseworker. Peter Walker, her father, was a black West Indian from St. Croix. Her father quickly vanished from view, and her mother married Peter Larsen, whose surname Nella took. Her stepfather and mother each had a daughter, Nella's half-sister. Larsen had moved to New York City in 1912 to pursue a nursing education at Lincoln Hospital. After graduation in 1915, she proceeded south to work at the Tuskegee Institute in Tuskegee, Alabama, where she became the head nurse of a hospital and training school. Larsen left her job as a librarian in 1926 after making connections with key players in the Negro Awakening, which became the Harlem Renaissance, and began working as a writer involved in the literary community, with her first tale published in January of that year. Larsen was praised for her fascination with mixed-race heroes, and she demonstrated clarity of vision despite the intricacies of her subject matter. Larsen lived during a period when there were frequent debates about black literature, advancing the cause of blacks by projecting positive images of blacks as accomplished, decent, and thus deserving of full-class citizenship, as well as when black writers were occasionally chastised for caving into white bohemians who associated with black artists. Larsen published his debut story in 1926. Her debut novel, Quicksand, follows a young, passionate biracial woman who craves love, acceptance, and an identity of purpose, only to become entangled in an emotional maze of her design. Her second novel, Passing, follows two light-skinned women, one Irene, who marries a black guy and lives in Harlem, and the other, Claire, who marries a white man but cannot abandon her black cultural roots. Larsen received the first Guggenheim Fellowship for Black Women in 1930. She never published again. These women's works have inspired subsequent generations of black musicians, painters, authors, and playwrights. Their successes established key benchmarks in popular culture and art, paving the way for subsequent prolific black female writers and artists such as Alice Walker, Toni Morrison, and Maya Angelou. Their work was innovative in its honesty regarding black women's realities at the time, and it continues to influence producers and innovators today. However, many studies by African American women writers of the Harlem Renaissance, which are still readily available, revealed facts about the time, people, and places that only a black woman could express. If you find value in the content we provide on this channel, please hit the like and share button. To get the latest updates, kindly hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.